Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to stick to Sweden and we're going to return to a brewery that's featured on the channel a good number of times before. I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the years, a good few different styles, but I would say that this brewery are known mainly for their hazy New England IPAs. They're one of the best known breweries here in Sweden and actually one of the most reviewed breweries here on Rampant Lion Reviews as well. So the beer that we're going to have a look at today is one of their latest releases. It's supposed to be pretty good, so nice to return to these guys. Hopefully it's another good beer, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. So let's see how we go then. For this review, we will head up towards Gothenburg once again, Göteborg as you would say in Swedish, the Swedish craft beer capital up there on the west coast, and we're going to have a look at another beer from Stigbergets Bryggeri. So this particular beer is called Trivas. It comes in at 6% ABV, and this is another New England hazy IPA. So yeah, this beer was released as part of the local Småskalig assortment through Systembolaget here in Sweden for September of 2021, and I honestly couldn't tell you now how many Stigbergets beers we've reviewed. It must be somewhere near 80 or something like that, but I always enjoy trying the new things from these guys. So like I say, hopefully this is another good one. So let's get cracking with this review then and see how we go. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Stigbergets Bryggeri over the years, and there will no doubt be more added to that at some point in the very near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, on to my brewery notes then to tell you a little bit about Stigbergets Bryggeri. So Stigbergets Bryggeri, as I've told you before, are based in Gothenburg, Göteborg, up on the Swedish west coast, and the company was founded by Nils Hultkrantz and Richard Simonsson. So these guys own two bars that share the one kitchen. This is the Bar Kino and Hagebjörn's Cafe, which can be found on Linnegatan in the city, and they opened back in 2007. The building itself is actually an independent cinema. And if you want to see what it looks like, you can go and check out my out and about video that I filmed there back in October of 2019. I didn't know this until I was there. So the next time I go, I need to get a little bit more time in the Hagebjörn's Cafe and maybe go and see a film as well. That would be quite nice. But originally, the idea that they had was to brew a few beers that they could sell in the bars, and this led to them kegging and selling the beers to other pubs and eventually to bottling them, which began in November of 2014. But the original beers that they were brewing were mainly English and German styles, but of course more recently they began expanding into the hoppy American beers, and this is where they really started to make their name. The original head brewer was Ole Andersson, who created some very famous beers, but he is also one of the co-owners of OO Brewing. He stayed with the company until April of 2017, if memory serves me correctly, before he went full-time at OO Brewing. But Ole Andersson was the one who created the GBG Beer Week beer of 2016, which really kick-started the whole New England IPA sort of thing here in Sweden. And around the same time, he also created the Narangi, which was released under the OO brand. And quickly after that, the Amazing Haze came out as well, and those are three of the four cult classic Swedish New England IPAs, in my opinion, along with the new Sweden IPA from Stigbergets Bryggeri. But he was replaced for a short period of time by Barnaby Struve, who was one of the vice presidents at Three Floyds over in Munster, Indiana, close to Chicago in the US. But he only stayed, as I say, just a couple of months. But around this time, they moved to a new facility at Partihallarna, where they were brewing 5,000 litre batches at a time. And they also began working on some sour beers in that facility as well. But they started selling their beers in the 440 milliliter cans as opposed to the 330 milliliter bottles. And this has allowed them to export their beers a lot more widely. But these days, they've got a brew team of Ollie Banks, who used to work for Beavertown in London, and also Lucas Munraid, who used to work for All In Brewing, one of the numerous gypsy legacy breweries operating in the Gothenburg area. But they've just moved, as of summer 2020, to a new brewery at Ringön in the city. They're considering brewing a lambic beer here, which I'm very curious to hear about. And apparently they're looking to open up a bar at the brewery as well. And they're saying that there's swimming facilities at this too. The articles that I read said they were looking at a sort of experience brewery, whatever that's going to be. So I will need to get to Gothenburg at some point. And yeah, definitely need to get to Gothenburg at some stage and have a little look at that, of course. But yeah, they also opened up a bar in Stockholm in April of 2020, and that's been going well as far as I understand. And they also have their own folk öl shop in Gothenburg as well. And for those of you watching outside of Sweden, folk öl is anything that's 3.5% alcohol and below. That can be sold by private companies, if you like. Anything above that has to go through Systembolaget, which is the nationally owned alcohol monopoly. But yeah, that's everything about the brewery really. As of September 2021, when we're filming this review for you, these guys have produced in the region of 150 different kinds of beer. So yeah, that is everything you need to know about Stigbergets. So if you want to learn more, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. And of course, you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all those different beers that they've done. So yeah, that is it for the history section. Let's go on and actually have a look at the beer itself. So to tell you a little bit about the beer, as we said earlier, this one is a 6% New England IPA. It's hopped with Citra, Simcoe, Sabro, Brew One and Galaxy, so we know all of these hops quite well. Citra, 14% alpha acid, American, lots of mango, lots of kind of citrusy zest. Simcoe, 12% alpha acid, American. Once again, that gives you, in a New England IPA, that's going to give you a lot of soft passion fruit. Sabro, as we know, that can be about 14-15% alpha acid, and again, it's American. It gives you the coconutty notes, a nice kind of tangerine sort of thing as well. Brew One is another American hop. That I'm sure sits around 13 or 14% alpha acid. I forget exactly, but it usually gives you a lot of pineapple in your beers. And then Galaxy is the Australian hop, 14% alpha acid, quite a pungent passion fruit note, but again, quite a little bit of pineapple in that one in my experience. But yeah, the malt base is Golden Promise, Golden Naked Oats, Torrefied Wheat and Torrefied Flaked Oats. And as we said, this is a 6%er, a New England IPA. So just to let you have a little look at the artwork before we open up, as you can see, as you usually get, very, very nice from Stigbergets. Now the name of this one kind of confuses me a little bit. So it's called Trivas, which means flourish. But when you see the sort of artwork on this, it's actually a little bit more kind of springtimey. So it's a bit strange for them to call one of their beers this in the autumn. At least that was kind of what I thought, to be honest with you. So yeah, unless it was, you know, if it was a southern, I could understand if they did it and it was like a Southern Hemisphere hopped IPA, then I would get what they're talking about because the opposite of the seasons. But yeah, I don't know why they wouldn't use this name in the in the spring rather than in the autumn. But there we go. But yeah, it means flourish, and that's why you've got the bee and all the flowers and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm not sure exactly why they chose this name at this particular point in time. Maybe it's been released before and this is a re-release. I'm not sure. And this could have been released on cask or something, or keg, whatever, earlier in the year. But yeah, 440ml can. This one cost me 45 Swedish krona, which is standard for a single IPA. €4.50, £4 sterling, about $5.25, $5.50 American for those of you watching over there. But yeah, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting then. Always nice to try another Stigbergets beer. Yeah. Oh, and you can smell that already as soon as you open it. But I suppose when you've got 5 hops in it, and the ones that are in this beer, that's no a surprise at all. So, I just washed this glass ale and it's getting the sticky carbonation thing. It's annoying. There we go. Anyway, so let me just set that down so that my OCD is happy. Check out me using the American English as well. Set this down. Come on. Spending too much time around the Swedes who are using the American English these days. It's terrible. But yeah, anyway, so as you can see and as you would expect from a New England IPA, this guy's poured with quite an impressive level of haze actually. For a 6%er, the level of haze on that is pretty impressive. But yeah, let's have a little look at the head before it disappears. So this one poured with about a 1/3 finger of a frothy, I would say creamy coloured head. That's faded away to just be a very kind of thin foamy layer now, but there's a nice kind of ring around the edge of the glass there. But overall, it looks pretty nice. But yeah, one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of that head there. But I mean, overall, yeah, it looks pretty good. In terms of colour, as you can see, this one's actually, if we shine the light through this, it's actually a kind of sort of it's a kind of murky medium amber. I think that's probably a good way to describe this. Yeah, murky medium amber, but I can see on the camera to you guys, it's coming across, it's a bit more kind of yellow or whatever. I think, yeah, the light was a little bit too low for this. But yeah, it was coming across as a sort of murkier yellow type thing. But yeah, it looks, I say it does look pretty good. I need to remember, I wish you could, with this light thing that I've got behind me, you can't, it doesn't have memory, it doesn't remember what settings it had, which is a bit annoying. But yeah, that's the thing. So I need to just play about with that a bit more and see, but I can see the light's a lot better on the camera now. But yeah, as we say, you can see that colour better now, a nice kind of murky, medium, to you guys it looks like a very dark yellow, but it's actually a little bit more of a kind of ambery colour. So remember, the colour of your beer depends on 1, the type of malts that you use, 2, the length of your wort boil is also going to play a role. The longer you boil the wort, the more the sugar's caramelised, thus you get a darker colour of beer, and the slightly more kind of tropical fruit, the slightly more mixed tropical fruit juicy colour that this one has tells you that there is a more kind of brown sugary orientated malt in this one. Golden Promise, I think, can give you quite a bit of a more orangey amber colour. But yeah, certainly looks the part. As we say, the haze on this one is pretty impressive, and that's due to the oat and wheat content along with the yeast. This varies from brewery to brewery and recipe to recipe. So yeah, this is pretty impressive looking for a 6%er, I have to say. So nothing more we really need to say about the appearance of this one. Let's have a closer look at the aroma and just see how we go. Yeah. Ooh, that smells nice. So aroma wise, the first thing that comes out at me is this is a big, juicy, quite zippy, fruity New England IPA. But the malty side of things, it comes across as quite smooth and sort of oaty, I guess. It's the oats that stick out the most, and then the green component for me is actually quite floral. So yeah, I like how this I do like how this goes together. So yeah, the way that everything goes together on this one is quite nice. But let's try and break down that aroma for you just a wee bit more. Yeah. So on the malty side of things, it actually smells, the malt base actually smells kind of quite thick, but when you consider the amount of oats in this, that really makes sense, and it leans towards the kind of creamy side of things. So yeah, it smells like the backbone of this beer. You definitely get a little touch of bread crust, a little bit of the white bread. You always get this usually. You can smell a bit of the wheat just thickening that and, you know, densifying that up a little bit, if that makes sense. So you can smell the sort of the bread crust, the soft white bread, and then the wheaty thickness forming the kind of backbone, the anchor of the beer, if you like. But on top of that, you're getting a hell of a lot of oats. You can smell the oat smoothness out of this one. It's really, really obvious. Yeah, the big kind of smooth oaty character out of this one. Yeah, the big smooth oaty character that comes out of this one is really nice actually. It's yeah, big smooth oatiness there, and I'd say it's got a bit of sweetness to it. You can smell a little bit of sweetness to the oats in here, but otherwise it's just very, very smooth in fact. So I like how that goes together. Yeah, it really just smells very thick and creamy, this one, in the malt base. You do get a wee bit of a kind of brown sugary note out of this one. You can smell, you know, that typical Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy sort of thing. And there's also a little bit of a kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity element to it as well. So yeah, I do like how that goes together. In this beer, it smells very, very nice from that perspective. But yeah, malty side of things is spot on. The green component for me is kind of what you'd expect. There's a little bit of earthiness in there. There's a nice big floral aromaticity as well. Yeah, I do like how that goes together. The big floral aromaticity, it actually smells like quite a wet floral aromaticity in a sense, but still quite smooth. Then you've got a nice kind of grassy, zesty sort of thing in there as well, and it's a little bit of a kind of wet, grassy type thing too. So I do like how all of that goes together. So yeah, green component is kind of what you'd expect. You get a wee bit of the zestiness and things from a few of the different hops in here. All of them, of course, will be contributing to this green component. But remember, New England IPAs rely on late addition hopping and dry hopping mainly, rather than having early addition hopping in addition to those such as the West Coast IPAs. So yeah, the green components in these, they can be quite strong, but not as strong as in the West Coasters in my experience. But let's look at the fruity part of the beer then to round off the aroma. So yeah, we have a nice little bit of passion fruit to this one. It's quite a smooth passion fruit because, you know, Galaxy is going to give you a pungent passion fruit, but Simcoe is going to give you a smooth one, and, you know, Citra is going to give you something in between that, actually. So you get a bit of a stronger passion fruit in there. A smooth I'd say it's more smooth than anything else, but you can smell big juicy mangoes from the Citra as well. There's a lot of pineapple to this, and that's both the Galaxy and the Brew One that's giving you that. So, you know, it's kind of, if you know these hops, this one really gives you what you'd expect. You get a wee bit of passion fruit, a big juicy mango, and you've also got a nice kind of, you've also got a nice little bit of a kind of, just a smooth, a nice juicy kind of pineapple sort of thing. So I like how that goes together in this one. So it gets a thumbs up from me in that regard. This has a nice big juicy fruity character to it. There are subtleties in there such as, you know, like apricot and papayas and stuff like that. You do get a little bit of this, but yeah, I think passion fruit, mango, and yeah, passion fruit, mangoes, and a little bit of a more yeah, pineapple-y note coming out of this one, which is good. You do get a little bit of a kind of lemon-limey note on the very tip of the nose too, which is interesting. But yeah, I think this is going to be another good beer. So let's get the rest of it in the glass. There we are, and we can have a taste of this one then. So yeah, this is the Trivas, the Flourish, I guess we could say, or Flourishing. Yeah, it's Trivas. I think it's Flourishing. You would translate this to as. But yeah, the Flourishing New England IPA, 6% ABV from Stigbergets in Gothenburg, up on the Swedish west coast. Let's get stuck in. Slange, skål, and cheers. Yeah. Big oaty, smooth IPA, this one. And again, from Stigbergets, it's pretty solid. Yeah, big smooth IPA, lovely. The fruits in this one are really juicy rather than anything else. So they're not even just slick, they are just kind of straight up juicy. And the green component for me, it's got a little bit of zip to the floral side and more of a kind of grassy zest as well. I think that's a basic summary of the beer actually. But yeah, this is, again, it's pretty solid actually. It really is pretty solid. You know, first question is going to be, is this one of the best New England IPAs you've had from Stigbergets? I'd say, you know, it's you know, when you try so many beers from the one brewery that are the same style, it's quite difficult sometimes to remember them. But yeah, some of the, I would say it's not the most striking one I've had from them. I would say that for sure. Certainly not the most kind of striking one, but it keeps up with their standards, if that makes sense. It keeps up with the standards. I think that's fair to say. So it's a solid Stigbergets beer, but not one of the ones I think that really kind of pushes up and pushes into the, you know, pushes into the really high, my kind of top 10, I guess we could say, Stigbergets stuff. But solid once again, so thumbs up to Stigbergets. Let's break the flavour down for you a bit more and describe it. So, backbone of the beer then, I would say it's quite, in the middle third of your palate and back third of your palate, it's definitely that typical sort of bread crusty base there. That goes right across the middle and back third of your palate. On top of that, you've got a very nice kind of smooth white bready sort of thing with this one, which I do like. And you can feel the wheat again sitting on top of that and just thickening it out. That's middle and back third of your palate. That works there. So let's focus a little bit more on the middle third of your palate. So if you go to either end of that middle third of your tongue, you definitely get a little bit more of a kind of bread crusty, you get a bit more of an intense bread crusty character coming out of this one. So you can feel that for sure. And then on top of the wheat, going down the middle line of your palate, you can feel that nice kind of smooth oaty sort of thing. So yeah, I do like how that goes together. You can feel that nice kind of smooth oaty layer just going right down the middle of your tongue. It's the kind of trench, if you like, and you can feel that it spreads a little bit out towards the sides of the palate too, so you get that smooth but kind of dry, oaty kind of vibe out of the beer. So I do like how this goes together for sure. But yeah, on top of that, what I'll also say is there's not too much in the way of a sweet part to this beer. The aroma really gave you the impression of quite a wee bit of Werther's original kind of brown sugary sort of notes, but you only get a little bit of that in this beer actually. This is actually, it really becomes a bit kind of drier on the oaty side of things, which is interesting. And we have to remember as well, this beer isn't at its freshest. It is a couple of weeks old now, so we have to bear that in mind for sure. But you know, at the same time, it holds up pretty well. That shouldn't be too much of a concern when you're analysing it. But yeah, if you go to the middle of your palate, there is a small circle. You get that Werther's original butter candy, butterscotchy sort of thing. Maybe a teeny little bit of a straight up caramel in the dead centre of your palate. And yeah, I do like how that goes together. But yeah, it works. It really does work. So yeah, but definitely I'd say this is one of the, from memory, this strikes me as one of the kind of slightly drier IPA, New England IPAs that I've had from Stigbergets in the past. And as I've said to you before, there's 6 different traits of a New England IPA. They can be farmhousey and yeasty, rye leaning grainy, wheaty bitey, oaty creamy, barley malt leaning bready, and then they can be a bit sweeter and brown sugary. This one is definitely one of the more yeasty and barley malt leaning ones in a sense, but the oats I think are probably the most prominent, and they're quite dry. The oats in this one are actually quite dry, I would say, and that's a bit unusual for me, but I like how it goes together for sure. Yeah. Where do we start with this one then? Where do we start with this one? Beyond that, I don't think there's too much to say about the middle third of your palate, so we can focus on the back third of your palate then. So the border region between middle third and back third of your palate, you can feel a little bit of a bready build up there. You feel that building. Nice bit of bready build up, wee bit of more intense bread crust then. The base of that back third of your palate, again you've got the bread crust, and it's a bit more grainy towards the back of the palate this time. You've got the kind of thicker white bread. You can feel the wheat there, and the wheat of course is a little bit more bitey. Then sitting on top of that, you have the yeasty component of the beer, so you can feel the yeast is a little bit more dense, if that makes sense, a bit more dense and kind of dry. You get a few kind of crackery, grainy elements in there as well. But at the back of the palate, you have that big, you can feel just the flavour's a bit taller, and as you come further forward it condenses down and it just squashes together a wee bit more. But like I say, this is one of the slightly drier New Englands that I've had from Stigbergets from memory. So yeah, that's interesting for sure. But other than that, I think there's not too much to say. There's nothing else we really need to say about the malty and yeasty components of the beer. So yeah, we can go on. The hoppy side of things then, the green component, for me, this beer actually does have a fair wee bit of earthiness in it, and I'm surprised considering the hops that are in this. Because yeah, you don't normally get too much of that. Just checking again, so it's, yeah, Sabro. There's no mosaic in this one, because the earthiness, you know, I was thinking, yeah, there's the orangey element in there, and usually it's mosaic that would give you an earthiness like that, but that's an interesting point. So I do get a wee bit of earthiness there. As you move further forward though, it quite quickly becomes quite floral, and the floral aromaticity is quite bright actually. It's got a nice big aromatic sort of thing to it. So that goes together very nicely. And it is, you know, it does give the beer just a bit of zip almost too. But round the front curve of the palate, the green component is definitely more grassy and quite zesty. in a sense, yeah. Yeah, it's, how do we, yeah, I would say it's quite, yeah, it's a kind of big zest, it's a big zesty, um, yeah, big zesty, grassy sort of thing, but the floral notes kind of linger in there as well, and the floral character actually gets a bit deeper the more that you drink of this beer too, so that is really interesting in that sense. Yeah, so good bit of earthiness, bit of a deeper floral aromaticity, but still quite zippy at the same time, and then a nice big green, grassy, zesty sort of thing. So yeah, the floral component of this one's a wee bit surprising actually. But let's look at the front third of your palate and the fruitiness then. So border region between front third and middle third of your palate. Again, you get a little bit of a bready build up in there, a wee bit of a kind of bread crusty sort of thing. And then the base of that front third of your palate is a more kind of smooth, white bready kind of character. So I do like how that goes together for sure. So yeah, soft kind of white bready base there, and then on top of that you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So towards the back of that you have a wee bit of that stronger passion fruit. Absolutely, you get a nice kind of strong passion fruit out of this one. But on top of that you have more of a, you can feel that the passion fruit kind of mellows out as you come forward, because remember passion fruit's going to come from Citra, Galaxy and Simcoe in this one. You're going to get it from all three of those, but the Galaxy and the Citra are the ones that are going to give you the more intense passion fruit, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's where this beer is going with that. But yeah, as you move further forward, you do get certainly more of a yeah, you get that, you can feel the passion fruit mellows out a little bit, but then you start to get a lot of the mango, and the mango comes across as quite ripe. That's the Citra that's going to give you that, I would say. And then as you push forward, you get a few undertones, pardon me, of apricot and things like that. But the mango really takes the lead. It's the more, you know, the passion fruit and the mango and things do take quite a bit of a lead in this. And then you have then you know, when you move further forward from that, you get the more citrusy part on the front half of that front third of your palate. So you do get a bit of a lemon limey kind of thing on the front half of that front third of your palate there, and I would say that that lingers there and gives the beer a bit of zip. But on top of that, you certainly get a bit of the pineapple, which is going to be the Brew One, and you also can feel a wee bit of the tangerine from the Sabro as well. I don't get so much of the coconut from the Sabro in this one. It's very subtle, actually, right in the dead centre of that front half of the front third of your palate. You really get a bit of it in there, but otherwise, as I say, it is very, very subtle in that regard. So yeah, a wee bit of tangerine note in there. You can feel the tangerine, I think, comes out a bit more in the aftertaste from the Sabro. You've got the pineapple in there from the Brew One, and then you can feel the kind of zesty component of the Citra just lingering there before the front tip of the palate. That lemon limey thing, then it just mixes with the grassy component of the beer. But yeah, let's have a little look at the mouthfeel there. I think we've said everything we really need to say about the flavour of the beer, I guess. But let's have a wee look at the yeah, let's have a look at the mouthfeel then, just to round off the review. Having a brain fart, guys. But yeah, mouthfeel wise, mid-bodied. It's right in the middle of the spectrum for a New England IPA. Carbonation is very, very smooth. And again, I would say overall this beer is just very, very smooth. It's got a good bit of creamy character to it, this one, because of how oat heavy it is. But like I say, this is one of the drier oaty New England IPAs that I've come from. And the more that I drink of it, the more I'm tempted to say it has a little bit of that farmhousey element that I was talking about earlier. It has that more kind of yeasty kind of thing to it as well. The yeasty flavours come to the fore a little bit more on the back third of your palate the further you go into this one. In terms of IBUs, I think it's a fairly standard 25-30 IBU beer, this. I don't think there's too much there, but it leans towards that floral, aromatic, grassy, zesty sort of thing. The malty side of the beer is very smooth, oat leaning, like I said, but a bit of a drier oaty leaning kind of thing, and a wee bit of a kind of sweeter character too in there. But yeah, fruity side of the beer, mainly tropical leaning, but you do get quite a bit of a citrusy, zesty character off it too. So it's got a little bit of everything, this, and it is a fairly solid beer. Actually, it is very, very solid in that sense. So yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this one. This is a solid one, but as I say, potentially not one of the more striking ones I've had from Stigbergets. I think that's fair to say. But yeah, let's round off this review there then. So this one was the Trivas 6% New England IPA from Stigbergets Bryggeri in Gothenburg, one of the most reviewed breweries here on the channel. Another solid release from them, definitely. But looking forward to some more double and triple IPAs from them, I think. For me, they're still to beat the likes of the Chronic and the the King of what was it, the King of Hops it was called, if I remember rightly, the King and Queen of Hops. Those were pretty damn good actually. But yeah, that's it for this review. So once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Stigbergets Bryggeri as well. And as I said, we will return to these guys very, very soon, I'm sure. But in the meantime, check out my social media, check out theirs, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Slàinte, skål, and cheers.